This is the Extensionists, Conversations with Great Thinkers in Agriculture. I'm Toban Dyck.
And I'm Jay Whetter.
Hey, Jay.
Hey, Toban. You got the hey, Jay in there so quick. Nicely done.
I'm going to do it this time.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it. So, listener and viewer, I guess. We're on YouTube, by the way. Jay and I went to the Megadeth concert. It was Megadeth, Anthrax, and Exodus concert in Winnipeg.
So I went with my brother. It was going to be brothers, but one brother couldn't make it. Sat on the floor. You were with your brothers-in-law.
Two brothers-in-law and a friend.
And a friend up in the stands.
Nosebleeds.
But two very different, like, as you shared me pictures, I shared you mine.
Yeah.
Two really good perspectives. It was just an overall great event. I haven't been to a heavy metal concert since I saw Metallica in Minot, North Dakota in 1989. So it's been a while.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
My ears are still ringing from that concert. But this one, I don't know whether it's the technology. I don't want to just go on and on about the sound. But it wasn't super loud, but it was a full, beautiful sound. The experience was overall just fantastic.
It was. I love metal. So I mean, metal as a genre, sure, but I just like how it's so theatrical. Like, metal shows are theatrical, right?
Yeah.
Like Anthrax, they put on a show, right? Like they're characters, like they're, and I love that so much.
Yeah.
And you see that in so many of the metal bands. They kind of adopt this, and then when you watch interviews with these people, they're actually very like. I was chatting with you earlier, or I was watching a YouTube video with the Timu. I forget how he says his name, but he's from Finland. He's the guitarist for Megadeth.
Oh yeah.
He's an ice skater. So when they went through Saskatoon, they produced a video just before the Winnipeg concert. They produced a video where Timu's skating on the pond right by the Besborough Hotel. And shredding on this guitar, and the song's called "Let There Be Shred," and it's all him just skating around with his electric guitar.
Oh, nice!
Because he skates, right? He's a skater. And anyway, so I was watching this YouTube video with him. Sorry, I'm hijacking this intro, but
this is great.
I'm watching this YouTube video with him, and so you got this guy. He's young. He's long straight hair, and he's talking about the craft of guitar, and he's talking about the time he's put in to learn it, and of course, getting the call from Megadeth to be their guitar player, of course, it's life-changing, right? Like it's the pinnacle of kind of all the work you've put into a craft, into a discipline. But he was talking about like how he loves jazz, and he loves all these other kind of, you just don't associate it, right? Like as a kid growing up, kind of all the stigmas around metal musicians. You don't think of them as, this guy just loves, his icons aren't necessarily metal. Like they're just good guitar players. But yeah, when you see him on stage, he's just like headbanging and just like thrashing or I love it.
Well, it's a bit like Picasso, who was taught by his uncle over like meticulous months how to draw a perfect hand.
Right.
And his uncle said, no, do it again. No, do it, like for months and months and months. And so he became technically perfect.
Right.
But you look at a Picasso painting now and you're like, there's no perfection in that at all.
Right.
It's chaos.
Right.
And it's a bit like these.
I love it.
These heavy metal musicians are just like, that's what they want to do, but they're technically like, they could do all kinds of different things, guitar wise and musician wise. So you have, I want to end with Zach Wilde, but before we get to him, and because you've got an extension message.
Well, it's very similar to Timu, but yeah.
Tamu, yeah, because I had a Finn at the IFAJ, and she was telling me like, in Winnipeg you called Timu Solani Timu, and she said his name is actually Tamu.
Yes, that rings a bell, because when he said it, he introduced his name on YouTube. It was like that, yeah.
So back to the Megadeth concert. So I had been so long since I'd been to a concert and hadn't been on the floor ever. And I said to this one younger guy and it was just it was fist pumps and high fives. It was just a great crowd. Anyway, he said,
love it.
I said, so like, when the band start, can we go to the front of this stage, or do we have to stay in our seats? And he said, oh yeah, no, you let's all go to the front. And then he said, spread the word, brother. And then, so I thought that could be our new
Spread the word, brother.
tagline.
Yeah. Well, you did, because you sent me that. You sent me that message, so you did. You did spread the word. Oh, I love it.
All right, Zach Wilde.
Well, so Zach Wilde used to be the guitar player for Ozzy. He's got his own band, Black Label Society, and a few other bands. So I was watching this YouTube video with Zach. And he's an older guy. He's just a rocker from the, he's just a heavy metal guy. You look at him, he's like, that guy definitely is in a heavy metal band. So what's interesting about this is, again, back to the stigmas about heavy metal musicians. As a kid, he grew up thinking like, well, of course there's the religious stuff. It's like, they're evil, all that, blah, blah, blah. But they also like, they party a lot. They're like, just like, they're just these, but no, they're not, like, they're actually like disciplined, focused musicians. And I mean, that of course it sounds ridiculous to say, because of course they are, because they're really good at what they do. But when you hear them talk about their craft, Zach said when he was a kid, he's like, he would get home from school and his friends would go and do other things, like, not necessarily bad things, like, hang out or whatever. He would go home and, like Picasso's hand, he would learn his favorite songs on guitar and play them over and over and over and over again, and then over again some more, right? Yeah. From like 4 to midnight every day, right? And you like, over time, even though you're not playing, like you're not going through a coursework, he said just learning that hand, or whatever it is, it's the riffs that you like. You develop a fulsome picture of what this instrument is capable of, and you start to be able to kind of branch out from that and get creative with how you move your fingers across this fretboard. And then you find and like he's a really, really good musician, and
just happens to be making his living in the world of heavy metal, or heavy or arena rock or whatever. And just practice, right? And just I love it. I love those examples. Anyway, well, on that note, we'll have a chat with Lauren Benoit.
Let's get to it.
Do you like what you're hearing and want to support the Extensionists? If you are an agriculture company or association looking for a powerful way to get your message in front of Canadian farmers, then partner with us. Our listeners are farmers from coast to coast.
When you advertise with us, your brand isn't just another commercial break. It becomes part of our story. Ads on the Extensionists are personal and trusted. Our listeners value what they hear on the podcast.
Whether you're looking for a 60-second ad somewhere throughout the podcast, or even an exclusive episode sponsorship, we have options that will work for you.
So if you're ready to get your message out there and connect with farmers across Canada, let's talk. Visit theextensionists.com for more information.
Hi, Lauren. Welcome to the podcast. Our guest today is Lauren Benoit. Lauren is a PhD student at the University of Saskatchewan, and taking or studying biological nitrification inhibitors of wheat with Curtis Posniak. Anyway, we're not going to dig into that too much, although it sounds very interesting. Maybe we'll have to at some point. But Lauren, welcome. It's good to have you.
Thank you.
So we are going to talk about quite an ambitious Nuffield Scholarship project that you did on public-private partnerships and extension, and we're the Extensionists, so we'll get to extension eventually. But there's two things we need to talk about first. One is, so I looked up. You're from this tiny little town in Ontario called Kirkton, and this is nuts. But Timothy Eaton's first store was in Kirkton.
Yes.
That is incredible.
Yeah, so the Kirkton store, which is one of the more notable buildings in Kirkton, if you go into the back of it, there's like little antiques and a few photos from that time. But yeah, after that family immigrated, I think they had some connections to St. Mary's as well, but one of their first bricks and mortar buildings was in Kirkton, Ontario.
So maybe amazing. A lot of people don't know. People outside Canada don't know who Timothy Eaton is.
Well, so Jay's saying this because he was reading about Timothy Eaton when we were kind of researching this interview, and I just yelled at him. I'm like, who's Timothy Eaton?
Yeah.
And
So Toban doesn't even know who
no,
Timothy
but
is.
that was out of context. Of course I know. Of course I know, Jay. Please.
But their stores have been gone for a long time. Their stores have been gone for 20 years. So, because the Jets Arena is in the old Eaton's building that was in downtown Winnipeg, and that thing was built in probably 20 years ago. Yeah, at least 20 years ago. Anyway.
Yeah.
And so big retailer in Canada, famous. He'd be like a Macy's or Fields or J.C. Penney of Canada, and a lot of houses. You might not know this, Lauren, but a lot of houses on farms on the prairies were Eaton's houses. So you would buy a kit, and it would show up by rail or by truck. All these bits and pieces and bobs.
It's a very kind of once you see the style, you see them all over the place.
Yeah.
So these very kind of little A-frame kind of very. What's the style of house? There's a name for it. I forget it.
I'm not an architect, but they're like 2-story, quite substantial farmhouses. Yeah. Anyway.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. And I mean, now that I'm in the prairies, I will.
Yeah,
I'll
you'll
look
have
up
to-
what they look like, and then I'll drive around. And
Well, Les
once it gets
Henry, who has passed away, but as a legend at U of S, he did a whole book about the Eaton houses, just as a total side project. He's a soil scientist, or he was famous, maybe the most famous soil scientist on the prairie. So yeah, you could just ask anybody about Les Henry's Eaton's book, and you can. They'll tell you. They'll tell you all about it.
That's awesome. True
So
academic.
we could talk. Oh, did you want to talk about curling, or was that me?
You do. I mean, I have curled before. My wife's she loves curling. The Briar's happening right now, and
It is.
and that's exciting. I would probably hijack this portion of the podcast to talk about hiking.
Oh yeah, do that. Hiking is almost more exciting than curling.
Hiking is almost more exciting than curling, but you curl.
I do, yeah.
So he's excited because in our notes it says, Lauren, that you're looking for a team, and Jay has an opening for you.
Yeah. Well, we have 6 players on our team because we can never all show up at the right time, and so we welcome a 7th.
Yep.
When you decide to move to Winnipeg, we'll put you on our roster.
Okay, I will let you know. And it's funny you mentioned that because when I curled in Ingersoll, we used to have 2 teams of 4, and then it kind of just became one team of 8 semi-reliable people.
Yeah, that's right.
And
Yeah. Semi-reliable.
just to get people there on time or every week.
Yeah. Even if we show up, we're semi-reliable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Throwing rocks through
But
the house and
that's funny.
So
Yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I didn't realize it. I just realized it a few days ago that the Briar is actually coming to Saskatoon next year.
Ooh.
So that was a highlight of my day yesterday.
That's awesome. You can
Then I'll get to go watch the Briar again.
pre-buy tickets already, or
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, that's awesome.
What are your favorite places to hike?
Oh, there's so many good places to hike. A friend and I actually did the W Trek in Patagonia.
Ooh.
It was right after the Nuffield, kind of the big Nuffield conference, so 2024. A friend and I did the W Trek in Patagonia, which was
Is that up and over
incredible.
the mountains from Chile to Argentina, or where does this trek go?
Now I'm blanking on what side it's on. It's on the Chilean side.
Okay.
And you kind of do like it's a W shape. So there's a few out and backs along kind of a trail. A lot of elevation
Yeah.
on that, and it's all through the mountains.
How long was it?
What were we? 4 days? You can kind of pick and choose a little bit. So if you want, you can extend it and make it a lot longer because it's a part of a larger network. I think we did 4 days, if I remember correctly. We got incredible weather for the first 3. And then on the last day, it was like sideways rain. It was, it was the most, it's the day we actually talk about the most because it was so miserable. But because it was the last day, it wasn't that bad. All of our stuff got soaked. That's probably the most memorable hike that I've been on. But even, I was actually happy to move out west because I'll be closer to the mountains.
Yeah.
Not too terribly close, but closer than Ontario. So I can hopefully get to that a few times.
So have you done any multi-day hikes in Canada?
No, I
Yeah.
haven't. I would love to find some.
Yeah, West Coast for sure. There would be
Yeah.
some like yeah.
Have
Yeah.
you done
I've
it?
had friends do the what is it? The Victoria Island Trail?
Okay.
What is that?
Oh, yeah.
I think that's the West Coast
Yeah,
Trail.
I'm drawing a blank on all the names right now. I mean, I know the West Coast Trail,
Yeah,
but
me
that's a
too.
super hard one. There's a couple other popular ones that aren't so challenging, but yeah, I've never done it. I've never done a multi-day hike. I would love to do a multi-day hike, and going to Patagonia would be amazing. In fact, my wife and I are trying to think of spring break plans. So
Oh, yeah.
maybe that
That'll
maybe
be a trail in
Yes.
Patagonia.
for sure. That would be. But I like the
Wait.
idea, like the driving rain on the last day. I mean, as like we watch a lot of YouTube videos of like ultra runners going through the mountains and hikers and all that kind of stuff, and like as crappy as that is, actually kind of fills me with like I would love that because when you as a hiker you kind of want to prepare for all the you want to have the gear for all of the possibilities, the eventualities,
Yeah.
and to kind of you can imagine the satisfaction. I don't know how prepared you were, but I can imagine the satisfaction of encountering those conditions and being ready for them, right? And having the right gear. So, were you prepared?
Yes, we were. Well, like we had rain gear.
Yeah.
It was kind of the type of rain that I'm not sure you could have been
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
more prepared for. Like there is so we were still wet
Yeah.
by the end. We could have been more prepared, certainly, but we weren't terribly ill prepared by any
Yeah.
means. We both had raincoats. It was just like it was insane, and it does.
I love
Not that it's a good thing, but when you've carried your rain gear around for 3 days, there is a little bit of satisfaction in actually getting to use it.
Yes. Yeah.
So, which is one of the, but yeah, it was a friend and I hiking together, and she had actually hurt her ankle. And I think we had 3 or 4 hours of hiking on the last day, and I don't think we said a word to each other the whole entire time. Like we left, and it was the nice thing about that trek too. We had a tent that we brought, but there was shelter at each stop. So like you
nice.
could go into a building, you could get hot food. You
yeah.
didn't have to be 100% reliant on yourself, which was
Yeah, that's great.
really, really nice. But I think we left we left where we had stayed the night before, and walked in like total silence and pouring rain for like 4 hours until we got to the end.
Oh, I love that. I can just imagine you're tired, and then these conditions, and
Was it
Yes.
was it like the gravel side of a mountain where if you lost your footing
Yeah.
you would tumble for thousands of feet?
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, there was a little bit of that. A little bit of kind of like through wooded areas. A few that was like just like some of it was really exposed. I'm sure it would have been gorgeous on a nice
Right, if
day.
you could see
Yeah.
anything.
yeah.
So you're
But yeah, you
basic-
just kind of put your head down.
and you're walking in the middle of a cloud and you can barely see your feet. Is that what it was like?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Like it was so yeah, it's I love hiking. It's so much fun.
Yeah. Did you record it? Did you like take video and photos and?
So that's the other thing that's fun. We had a lot of pictures from the first 3 days.
Yeah.
I think we have one picture from that day.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and it was like the trail had turned into a bit of a waterfall.
Yeah.
And I think I took a picture of that. But other than that, we have like no real evidence that it happened, except for our own memory.
Own
Yeah,
stories,
well,
yeah.
that's great. And I just love like in the notes here it says your favorite food, and it says the sandwich you eat on a hike when you've reached the pinnacle. And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like that's just like there's like some real depth behind that, like as opposed to just saying, hey, I like lasagna or like pizza, because there is something so it's tied to just fatigue, kind of end of the line, desperation, need, enjoyment. It just
And
like
it must taste so good.
yeah, it's just all these things that kind of build something that's kind of quite special. I love that. That's a great answer.
But it's actually it's funny you mention that too, because the other thing about this this really tough last day in Patagonia, my friend and I got to like the final location, and we're just like we are soaked through a few layers of clothes, and sit down at a bench, and there was another pair of hikers, and they had hot chocolate, and I just like looked at them and I was like, where did you get that hot chocolate? And I don't think I've moved so quickly to like get a warm drink. Right. So as much as I think my favorite food might be, the sandwich. The other thing too, especially, and I don't know what you guys think about while hiking. If I will be thinking about that sandwich probably from when I start
Yeah.
the hike,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so
Always,
it's
yeah.
the anticipation is always like helps so much.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that sandwich needn't have been anything special, or you could even be like one of those like dehydrated food packs, and it would still be amazing, right? Because it's
Like so much better.
yes,
Yeah. Oh,
Awesome.
that's funny.
Well, we've brought you here to talk about. We're going to talk about your Nuffield scholarship work, and then some of the takeaways from that, which fits in with our extension, but our whole purpose for being here. But this public-private partnership, that's a lot of P's. Did that really pop in your ears over there, Abby? No, we're good.
that was good. Yeah.
I think it's so critical to research in Canada. We've got a lot of public sector investment, maybe less so than there used to be, but we want to make sure that it fits a purpose for farmers and for the private companies that are often going to be using this work. What's the current landscape, do you think, with public-private partnerships in Canada on the agriculture side?
Yeah, it was a broad topic, so I will start there. And I think there's a lot of different. I think there within Canada, just how diverse the country is. There's going to be little instances where public-private is working together really, really well, and then there's going to be other instances where they're kind of just separate. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Like, I think sometimes it makes sense for private industry to just run with something. And then other times it makes a lot more sense for the public space to be much more involved. I think, and this is a little bit of my gut feel right now, I think we're going through a bit of a transition time, especially on the research front, with the recent announcements from AAFC about budgets in that space. I think, some of the comforts that we've gotten used to, or some of the ways we used to do things is going to change a little bit. And I think we need to embrace that potential for change, or just at least acknowledge it. I don't think we can kind of ignore it and pretend nothing's ever going to change and just keep going. But I do think we're at a little bit of a transition point right now.
So if you were going to then guide or offer your insights to guide Canada through this transition, or were there models that you learned in your study that would work here?
So I think one of the Australian model is one that I think we have. There's a lot of pieces of it that I think we could kind of take and learn from. One of the things kind of across the board, though, I mean, every country is a little bit different, and we operate with, different markets, different trading partners, different production systems, different climates. So I don't think we can kind of just perfectly pick something up somewhere else and then take it and drop it in Canada. But I think across the board, when it came to, collaborations, having everyone's input at the beginning, doing a lot of the legwork up front and kind of developing the networks and getting a really good groundwork is something that pays dividends in the long run. As much as we sometimes maybe want to hurry through those steps, but that network development and those relationship building activities, which can take a little bit of time, you're not going to see the dividends on them right away. But I think in the long run, as we do that, making sure everyone's in the room to have an opinion and to kind of understand and bring everyone along as we do kind of transition or create things is one of the most important steps.
Who is everyone? Like who would you put on that list?
Yeah. So I just, this is a bit of a general start, but I think, in general, obviously, the government, you're in some ways elected officials or just, people that work in the public sector. You have producer groups as well and representatives from just a very boots on the ground perspective of how things would actually be implemented or perceived. And then you have various industry representatives as well from agribusiness. And I also think, with a lot of collaborations or just initiatives, if you advertise might not be the right word, but if you communicate that there's an opportunity to be involved in something like that, people can then choose if they want to be involved or not, rather than just kind of doing it and never, sharing about it. But as a general rule of thumb, getting producers in the room, I think is a big first step. Obviously, the public space, and then someone to represent. And when I say someone, not necessarily one person, but various people to kind of represent some of the other players in that network.
And so by government, you mean public sector researchers? So it could be university or, say, Agriculture Canada? Or do you also mean like the Minister of Agriculture? Like what is the government component?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for the government, thinking through an Ontario lens, I do know I just moved out west, but a lot of my experience obviously comes from Ontario. I was thinking of people like the OMAFRA Extension,
Right.
specialists, the OMAFRA Research and Innovation, even their policy, people just having them be involved and kind of aware of what is happening. And really, that intention too is to have them be connected to the industry. Like the more connection points you can make, I think the higher the likelihood that something beneficial is going to come out of it. And then
so AMAFRA
obviously,
is
if we can get,
just for people who don't know Ontario, that's the government agency. So Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food, and what is it, rural? It's got a name change, but that's
I think
the
they've
gist
actually
of it.
changed it.
Yeah.
I think it's OMAFA now, and I just wrote this down the other day. I think it's Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food, and Agribusiness.
Okay.
Yeah, they did change. Yeah, I know. I was using the old one the other day, and it, got corrected.
Okay,
I forget
so-
what the new one is, but yeah.
So we gather the government, this provincial government agency. You gather farmers. You gather in industry representatives. Maybe you also invite University of Guelph, say, just to use the Ontario model.
Mm-hmm.
And this is to rethink the future of agriculture and public and the investment in research. I think maybe we'll stick with the guiding research, right? Is that the point of the private public partnerships, or what?
As you
Yes.
investigated it, yeah.
Yeah, is
This
it
that's
research?
probably actually
Yeah, or what?
this is probably a little bit of a segue.
Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah,
So when I designed the project, or when I kind of came up with the idea, it started as that. How, as far as guiding research priorities and dividing up the research work, who does what and how do we talk to each other, was kind of the initial, who does what and who pays for what, was kind of the initial thought. And then once I dug into it, that's kind of when the whole systems approach started to become really, really clear. And there's a lot of, I'll call them supporting functions around research that impact how research gets adopted that we might not think of as research necessarily. So obviously we have extension networks. And then you have funding, like various funding models, and how academics are funded will impact the type of research that they're doing. And then how academics are incentivized to network with the industry being producers or businesses, which I guess producers are businesses too, but how academics or researchers are incentivized will impact how well they network and who they network with. And then outside of that, you have the funding models. So where is the money coming from? How is it getting distributed? And you have a regulatory system as well. So, if we do all of this good research, but can't ever bring, products or things to market, or if there's regulatory hurdles as well, the research becomes a little bit, not necessarily irrelevant, but the value of it gets kind of diminished when you have a regulatory system that isn't conducive to bringing innovation to market. So that was kind of how it started. It started with just within the research space, and then it ballooned out, and I kind of had to bring it back a little bit.
well, I mean, and that's when the job becomes challenging, but also that systems approach or that big picture is really important. And I think in any meeting, maybe, and I did again, okay, this is our part of it. This is what we can do. But we might achieve this, but if we don't have the regulatory, I mean, all of our work is for naught. So anyway, so I want before we go down that path, what I really found interesting that I want to dig into a little bit is your comment about researchers and their incentive to network, because we're in extension worlds. we just assume that everyone wants to talk about what they're doing, but some people aren't good at that, and maybe it's not even in their job description. It's not even on their radar, and they're thinking, what? Like how? So what is the scenario with the incentive to network with some of our researchers?
Yeah, no, I think you've hit on something. This was kind of a big thing that I learned a lot about too, but using the academic model, so kind of the university model, if you had researchers where, using a young researcher, for example, not to name anyone specifically, but, you have a young researcher, they're keen, they're eager, they want to impact the industry in a positive way, they're smart, and they're trying to make tenure. If their kind of the university promotion system is evaluating them for tenure, and the only thing they're looking at is things like publications or courses taught, any sort of extension work that they're doing, they might not end up getting credit for, when it comes to their own career promotion and their own career potential, which I think often puts them in really tough situations where maybe they would love to spend some time talking to farmers and putting together presentations for grower groups and everything. But if that work isn't going to be reflected, when they go and sit in front of the tenure and promotion board, if that work isn't going to give them, if it's not going to count or be credited towards them in a way that they can put their case together to get tenure, then that work could almost be, I don't want to say negative necessarily, because I think it is probably a benefit to the industry to have them as involved, but they might end up having to pay a little bit of a personal penalty for doing that work that is so good to the industry.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, like at the university level. So, I've often thought about this with extension, right? Like, how is it taught in universities for people, kind of going through education, or MSCs or whatever? I mean, you could speak to this. You've been through it and you're in it now. Is there a role for kind of bringing extension kind of more into that university space to incentivize? Because I agree. So if someone really career tracked and they're not, like, they might want to do it, but it doesn't fit in, it's not going to be recognized later. They're going to put their energy towards something that will be recognized, and then extension kind of gets left behind, and then that's a routine that you're used to, is to not do extension, or extension is lesser than the other things, and then you have to kind of rethink that when you enter the the working world, and you have to do extension. Then you kind of gotta, it's interesting. I could see it being a problem.
Yeah, and actually, I think a few other things kind of on this space too, as well, especially with academics and with researchers, and the skill set that makes a really good researcher isn't always the same skill set that makes a really good extension agent.
For sure.
Which I think is a little bit of, you're just asking one person to be a lot of different things.
Right.
Which is a big burden. I do find, and I would actually love to hear what you guys think of this, extension in general, I find it's sometimes hard to quantify what your impact is. And using kind of an example from when I worked at Bayer as an agronomist, being a customer-facing agronomist, obviously they want us out talking to farmers who have bought our products. And you can either just go talk to farmers, or you could go talk to farmers and then write down every single thing you did. Like in the public space, especially where they're looking for, we've spent so much money on extension, what was the return on that investment? But that return on that investment is a little less tangible than it is if it's a research paper, or if it's a research paper, or if it's, a dollar value or a production increase necessarily. So I find with extension in general, it's just a little bit harder to prove the value in a very concrete way that you can easily turn around and say, this was the money that was invested, this is what sort of things we got for it. And the other thing, actually, to kind of pull another example from the report, when I was in the Netherlands as well, in the Netherlands, they've really scaled back on public extension agents. So my understanding was they've eliminated, public extension agents. And they were feeling, from the producer side, there had been a market So there was independent agronomists providing that sort of, service or knowledge to growers. Where they were feeling a gap was the feedback loop back to government. So they didn't have anyone with a I don't know what the name of their government department is anymore, but with a Netherlands Ag Division,
Right.
Job title and a grower focused job responsibility as well. So they were feeling the feedback back to government was being impacted, which is where the regulatory and the policy aspect comes in as well, because it all works together.
Yeah.
So as you're answering that question, Lauren, I was just thinking about measurables. It comes up so often in even my work. And extension, like how do you measure the value of extension?
Or the impact,
Or the impact.
Same.
So and I'm thinking, so I know Bayer, this is kind of extension work, but it's also sales work. And I mean, Bayer's a business, obviously wants to increase market share. Which would be a key measurable revenue. But so you want, but there's the short term thinking is we want farmers to use our products. But I think the long term thinking is we want farmers to use our products and actually have a good feeling about using our products. And so there's it's a relationship building, not just sales. Anyway, so what were Bayer's measurables? What were the key objectives for you? And is there a parallel then in the world of extension?
That's a good question. And this was something that I've thought about it a little bit more. And to be completely honest, and you've already, tagged on it, the key deliverable for Bayer was a sales dollar.
Yeah. No
so
surprise.
Even,
that makes total sense. Yeah.
It's a business, and at the end of the day, as an agronomist, getting out, talking to growers, building those relationships, they become more comfortable with you. They become more comfortable with various products, and they know you can be kind of relied on. So then, the business grows. Hopefully both businesses grow, and the grower ends up more profitable, and Bayer is a big part of that. So the metric to determine whether agronomists or really any of our customer-facing team was doing their job was, our sales numbers going up, which is more or less a pretty easy black and white, thing to look at. And I think that's where the public space, it just becomes that much more difficult to measure. And if you were, outside of a product necessarily, if you were an independent agronomist and your whole business was kind of that knowledge network or knowledge transaction where you're really selling kind of information, and you're selling information, you're selling, I'm trying to think of the right word for it. Not intelligence, but really, I guess it's information.
Practices or behaviors or whatever. Yeah.
It's selling them ways that they can help make better decisions on their farm.
Yeah.
Then you still have your own. You know what? If I have 10 clients and all of them have, stuck with me year over year and recommended me to their neighbors, then I know on the extension front, I'm likely doing a good job. Whatever I'm doing has been working. And obviously they're engaging with it. But I think in the public space, because there's not necessarily a transaction, it's just that much more difficult to figure out what it's. I think it's harder. It's harder on two fronts. It's harder to figure out what's working. If on our side or as an independent agronomist, if you run an event and no one comes to it, then
that's a sign.
It's a pretty good sign that it was maybe missed the mark. Or like if you've put out ads and no one's answered. Whereas I think in the public space, it's just that much harder to find, a key performance indicator that that is going to resonate.
I'm going to jump in because I know
Yeah.
you got one. You got one
No, that's
loaded
good.
ready. We've thought about this a lot. I've been speaking for Jay here, and it's come up too. Like these measurables in the extension space and how difficult it is to actually track these things, KPIs or whatever.
Yeah.
And but this is a question for myself too. Looking in a mirror, it's like, is it is it that hard, or are we just a little bit lazy with kind of like with actually kind of developing the models for measuring these things? Because I think like there's got to be a way, and I mean I think just maybe some of the things that we're used to, how we measure kind of success or efficacy, we doesn't translate to the things that we do in extension, but there's got to be ways we can still do it. Like we track so much right now. Technology's allowed us to. There's got to be ways we can track the effectiveness. And I think I don't know. I feel like we should maybe spend more time thinking about that and actually develop these.
Do you have a thought?
I don't. I mean that's my thought. It's just like
no, but do you have a solution to your thought? Have you brainstormed anything?
No, nothing concrete. Mostly just that. Yeah. So it's like, are you trying to tell me that my comment is useless?
No, absolutely not at all. No.
No. I don't.
I think I would underline the importance of that,
Yeah,
that question.
yeah.
Lauren, did anything jump in your brain as
Yeah.
Toban was talking?
Yeah, as you were talking, kind of the thing that I was thinking about a little bit was, and this isn't a perfect example necessarily, but it's from, so in the Australian funding model, they have the GRDC, which is the Grains Research and Development Corporation. The GRDC is very well funded. They actually have probably too large of a surplus. They run a $200 million budget every year to go towards, grains research and development. But because they have, I'll say, a surplus of money, they can spend more time and effort into figuring out, what's working and what's not working. Maybe not in the extension space, but one of the things I noticed there that they had was they actually had better models for tracking the impact of climate change on their growers' operations. I don't have the data in front of me right now, but they had actually correlated, change in temperature degrees to a loss of productivity for their growers. And having that as a data set, when they also had people go out and, talk about things like no-till or talk about things that really have an environmental benefit or maybe a less tangible benefit, they were able to tie a practice like no-till to, if you implement no-till or increase carbon stores in your soil, you can, contribute to helping reduce climate change. You want to do this as a grower because it is impacting your productivity. And they would have numbers to kind of back that up. But when you looked at the whole scheme of research, if you don't have enough funding to fund all of it, some of that tracking is going to be the first things that's going to, come off of your list of priorities.
Right.
And I think when we look at extension work, because we're in a fiscal environment where money is a little bit tight, it's not that we can't do those things or we can't develop those tools. I just think that if you only have $1 to spend, which is obviously we'll have more than $1, but if you only have $1 to spend and your option is do the extension work or quantify how impactful the extension work was, you're going to just do the extension work.
Yep.
Yeah.
But are you saying that's the right move, or that, or should we save 10 cents for measuring?
Which I think is probably worth a bigger discussion. And maybe there's a split there. I also think, we run the risk a little bit when the fiscal environment gets a little bit more restricted, that if you spread the dollar too thin, you're going to end up with 3 or 4 half-done initiatives, which I think is kind of another conundrum or complexity where do you go all in on a few things or do you spread things out a little bit more?
Do 10 things half-ass or 2 things really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you spent a lot of time in Australia, or at least the Australian model was kind of resonated with you, this GRDC. 200 million a year. What are they doing extension? Like, do they have a mandate for extension?
Yeah,
They
what does that look
they
like?
also
Yeah.
do crop breeding, I think. I mean, they're into a lot of
Yeah.
things, but just on the
So-
on the extension side. So what does GRDC do?
Mm-hmm.
How are they funded? And how big is extension as
Yeah,
part of their model?
What can we learn?
Yeah. Good questions. Just as a side note, when you said they're involved in a lot of things, when I was in Australia, one of the taglines I've kind of come up with is that like all roads lead back to the GRDC.
Okay,
Like
yeah.
they are everywhere. Which I think when you think of systems actually lends a lot of efficiency to it because you have one organization that can see and influence a lot of different aspects of your whole innovation system. But to back up a little bit, the GRDC is a research and development corporation. So in Australia, I think there's 13 of them for various industries. The GRDC is the grains one. And the way they're funded is there's a checkoff that comes from the grower. So similar to the way the Grain Farmers of Ontario takes a checkoff at the elevator, the GRDC takes a checkoff from growers. It's a 0.9% of their, what that would be gross revenue, goes straight to the GRDC, and then the government matches it to half. So if a grower has put in $1, the GRDC would match it to 50 cents. And then that's where their budget is roughly 60% farmer funded research.
Wow.
Their board is made up of grower members, and then their mandate is to really oversee and invest in research and development initiatives on behalf of grain farmers in Australia. And they do, as you said, they're involved in a lot of different things. Their crop breeding is now actually funded by a thing called an endpoint royalty. So they don't fund, they have partial ownership in various seed businesses, but they're not actually funding the work, the physical breeding work anymore. But they do fund a lot of like the upstream things. So drought tolerance, disease tolerance, pre-breeding efforts the GRDC is involved in. And then really what they do and the way it was kind of explained to me, the best example that is actually weed resistance, because this was one, it is what I did my master's on, so I found it just a little bit easier to grasp some of the finer details. But the GRDC would essentially put together a proposal for a weed resistance initiative. They put together a proposal. They have people at the GRDC that understand what needs to happen, and they kind of help facilitate, all right, with the status of weed resistance in Australia, what do we need? Do we need more research? Do we need more tracking of the distribution of weeds? Do we need extension work here? Do we need... What else do we need? And then they kind of funnel the dollars to where it actually needs to be invested, and they kind of just oversee everything. They don't do the research themselves. They would partner with universities or partner with third-party research or even state-level research. But they kind of just oversee it all and help tie the pieces together and outline or just point out where the gap is in the system between generating the research and actually having it be, relevant to a grower's business.
Well, that's interesting. So would they modify their budgets annually? And like, okay, we've got all this research. The past 10 years, we've been spending 60% of our budget on research, but we're not talking about this research. So for the next 3 years, we're going to reduce our research budget and invest in extension or something. Like, do they move these levers on an annual basis?
So the way I understood it, and using the weed resistance example, I think their number, and we can fact check this number, but when I was there actually about this time last year, in Perth. They had just announced the $92 million fund for weed resistance research. That fund opens and then people can apply. So within that fund, I don't think from what I understood, there's not a certain, of that 92 million over, I think 4 or 5 years. It's not that this amount of dollars is going to go directly to research and this amount is going to go to extension. We have this pot under this topic. It was like it's sorted by topics more so than functions.
Yeah, okay. 92 million. That seems like a lot for weeds research. Amazing.
So is that a model, Lord? Like, do you see Can you see some of that kind of working in Canada, or like what's what can we take away from
Yeah,
that?
I think one of the things I think it really helped with was getting people out of silos a
Hmm.
little bit more. So then to use an example, if you're an academic,
Mm-hmm.
the Australian research, AHARI, Australian Herbicide Resistance Institute, is actually at UWA, University of Western Australia. If you're a researcher in that space, the GRDC has this fund, and you can apply. You could put an extension project in. You could put a research project in, and like as a researcher, you have access to kind of different functions, rather than just having to be just straight research. So I do think it helps get them out of silos a little bit more. That's kind of just my perception of it. One of the other things, though, that was a really big learning from Australia and from talking to academics there was specifically talking to these herbicide resistance researchers at the UWA. They said the GRDC is the biggest funder in Australia for production focused research. So they know that that's their biggest funder. They know that's the most likelihood that they're going to get funding for their program. So they were highly incentivized to, even before they put in a proposal, they would be talking to farmers and understanding what farmers wanted. Because if they could say that they'd already done that in the proposal, they were that much more likely of getting funding for their projects. And it just, from the academic side, the producer views or the producer perspective was kind of elevated because they were also, funding a lot of it. Which, again, if we want to talk about how to incentivize academics, pay for their research is
Right.
a pretty good way to do it.
So going back to a point you made earlier about researchers, I mean, the skill set that makes a good researcher is not necessarily the skill set that makes them a good communicator. Like sometimes they're kind of diverging in a way. So would GRDC take on the responsibility then of sort of funding the research and then taking the results and extending it? Rather, because now I often hear, and I mean, Toban and I have been part of these conversations about, training scientists to be better communicators. I'm thinking, well, maybe that's just the wrong approach. Let's let the scientists be scientists, and then we'll take care of the communication. And so does GRDC take that approach?
Yes, I can't remember the name of. They had a specific role for a person that would be doing that, and I can't remember the name of the project manager or something along those lines. But they essentially had a person who, and that would be what they would help with, to just kind of facilitate that. Which,
the phrase we use is knowledge and technology transfer. This KTT thing has become, I think it's now part of my job description. But anyway, with this communication of research. Anything you want to emphasize on the extension? Because we've gone down a few rabbit holes, and can we bring it back to a communications, effective communications conversation? Like how do we communicate effectively research?
Yeah. I think one of the things that stood out, and it actually stands out with, some in Ontario with some things, but this is more about collaborations and communicating in general. And I am so guilty of doing this, but we often talk about, it's right in the title of my project. We talk about the public space collaborating with the private space. And we talk about the University of Guelph collaborating with OMAFA. But really, at the end of the day, more often than not, it comes down to like an individual person. Like it's one researcher called one farmer to start. And then they had a conversation and then it ballooned. Or like I gave a presentation and then Jay called me. Like that's
right.
It starts at an individual basis. And sometimes, when press releases come out, it says the University of Guelph is collaborating or so-and-so is collaborating. But I feel like we sometimes, and I don't know if this is maybe a human psychology thing, we we undervalue our own ability to create some of these collaborations. And the big ones usually start from small ones. And that was kind of a consistent thing across the board, was just how often large collaborations really started with one or two people working together.
Yeah. I like that point.
Well, I
actually.
think you could. I've just made me think of Timothy Eaton, which was kind of nuts. But I mean, this tiny
Who's
little
Timothy Eaton?
yeah, well, this tiny little store in Kirkton. I mean, because there was something in Timothy Eaton, like the person, his approach to business, and it just ballooned into something big. I'm just emphasizing your point that is actually people are at the root of all of this, and sometimes it's even one person with an idea or two people connecting, and then you just kind of expand. So this is how I would interpret that. Your point, Lauren, is that, you know, if we see a need, if we see an opportunity, talk to somebody about it, and then broaden the circle. And it may, if it's a good idea, it'll grow.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think that was kind of one of the key learnings. And I think I feel like we sometimes wait until you need to collaborate before you call someone.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, and this is something I've worked on. I'm not perfect at it by any means, but instead of waiting until you need a collaborative partner, you know, look for an opportunity where a collaborative partner would make something better. Where not to say it wasn't bad or anything to do it on your own. The examples I'm thinking of are, again, they're very small things, but, you know, if I was giving a presentation at work, and I never actually got to this specific example that I'm going to use, I never actually got to, you know, fully realize it, so it's a bit of a moot point, but, you know, we have if I've been asked to give a presentation to growers, they see me all the time. You know, maybe, and it's perfectly fine for them to see me all the time. I can give a presentation on our hybrid lineup. It's not difficult. It's not kind of outside of the realm of my capabilities. You know, but we have corn breeders who, you know, live in Guelph that just have a different perspective and could make the presentation a little bit better. So there's nothing wrong with me doing it on my own. But if I can bring someone from the breeding team who doesn't get to have that grower interaction all the time, could we make it a little bit better? And could we give people a different experience? And I've been trying to, and actually that's somewhere where my Nuffield has probably impacted me, is I've been trying to look for opportunities like that a little bit more.
You collaborate
Where it's like, I mean, yeah, I can absolutely stand on a stage and talk about our hybrid lineup. That's not hard, but you know, if I brought someone else in, there's, you know, very low cost, very low, and honestly very low stakes as well. If they say no, they don't want to do that, then it's like, oh, that's fine. I'll still do it by myself.
Yeah.
But how does it change I really like that idea, Lauren. But how does it change the result? So you've got, because often, I mean, the models of our presentations, I don't know how they got to this, but it's like a 45-minute, just a bunch of slides. It's an information dump. And then if there's time, we'll have a little Q&A. But I think we've put Q&A so far to the side that farmers aren't even like, to get the conversation going, it just doesn't even happen. But I think that's where the delivery becomes effective, is when we have that two-way conversation. And your idea of bringing in the breeder into that, so the farmer can say, well, why did you do this? Or this is what we need. And the breeder is like, oh, okay, I've never heard that before. I'm so glad we had this conversation. You know, I think, is there a better model for how we present ideas to farmers? Yeah.
That actually rings a bell with a conversation I had. I was actually talking to Josh Cowan at GFO the other day, and one of the things he mentioned that I thought was really, you know, impactful, and I thought it was good for me to hear it as well, was I don't want to say convincing necessarily, but, you know, having growers understand that their feedback is also important. Like, if you are showing up to an agronomy day, the whole experience for everyone is going to be better if you ask questions. And if you actually engage with the presentation. which I think might just be a little bit of a mindset shift. Like, we're so used to, like, okay, sit through the 40-minute presentation and then there's 10 minutes for questions or whatever there is. That 10 minutes is right before lunch, so no one's asking questions. So, but just having growers understand that their input and their feedback helps make the system better too. Like,
Like, I think we do. I agree. I like that, and I think we say it a lot as a kind of a pat. Kind of. I'm not saying it's pat from you, Lauren. I'm just saying, like, I've said it too. I'm a producer as well, but it's one thing to say that we value the input of producers and that we want to value the input of producers, but I think we need to do an extension a better job of showing that we have valued the input, and to show that what we're showing you today is because we've been listening, instead of just, but don't worry, we're going to listen to you guys. Like, the implication is that we haven't been up until this point, but we're going to start now. And so instead of saying we're going to start, let's show that we have been. And I think our presentations and how we do things just need to kind of build that in a way that builds that kind of understanding that, okay, we're being listened to, as opposed to just telling them, hey, we value your feedback, fill out this survey. And it's like, okay, great. I read it, but I think to really kind of internalize that and figure out what that means, and then change our own behaviors as extension people to show that we are listening without telling them.
Yeah. Sorry, I've had another thought.
Yeah, good.
Right on. Go for it.
It's one of the things that I think, it's funny because as we're listening to this, I'm like, oh, these are ways that I could, like, implement this. With the surveys, I mean, I've been on both sides of it. I've handed out surveys to ask for feedback, and I've also filled out a lot of surveys giving feedback. But I think if I'm creating a survey for an audience, if there's a piece of feedback or someone who's clearly kind of put thought and effort into responding, actually just giving them a call or reaching out to them and following up to ask more questions on what they had said or what some of their perspectives are. I think that's going to be something I try and do. I don't know the next time I'm going to have to give a survey on a presentation, because I do sometimes feel like in the extension space, you want to, going back to kind of the KPIs, we often track by volume. And sometimes I wonder if quality would be a little bit of a, maybe more tangible place to, maybe not tangible, but like an easier place to start. So as an extension agent, instead of trying to reach everyone, how about you try and develop stronger relationships with, 5 or 6 key growers who really understand their industries and their businesses, and kind of balance like a quality versus quantity relationship. I don't know.
Yeah. And we develop ways to show that we're listening, right? So whether it's in a practical environment, maybe it's starting a presentation with showing some of the feedback you have gotten and how that's directed your actions and what that's resulted in, right? I'm just thinking out loud here, but instead of, I'm hung up on the idea of, instead of saying it, let's do it. Anyway.
So just to pick up on that, I mean, Lauren, what are because this is such a big topic. This is what we kind of at the end of all of our conversations, we're like, okay, now what?
Saddled with this great responsibility.
Yeah. So are there things that in Canada, it's like first steps toward something bigger? Like what do we need to be doing right now to set up for better?
Yeah. I think with that, the first question is, when you say we, do you mean who is we?
Great question, Lauren.
Pushing back to me, right? Because I asked you earlier, who is everyone? Okay.
Jay, who is we?
I'm not a farmer, but I grew up on a farm, and my brother and my father are farmers. I often have my farmer hat on.
Yeah, you're an honorary for sure.
Yeah. So I default to farmers because I think farmers can can be, or they are the leaders in this industry. So where should farmers be pushing back to make the situation better for them and for agriculture in general in Canada? So let's say we as farmers.
Yeah. Okay, that helps. Because I think as producers in the country, I think their biggest opportunity is to just start providing feedback, like actually looking at the system and trying to identify even like small tweaks or small changes that extension agents could make, and then actually providing that feedback in a constructive way. And maybe this is another thought, but so one of the things that I valued about my time at Bayer, and this isn't necessarily just Bayer, but in working for a corporate or working for a company, they provided training on how to have conversations where there was critiques, and like training on how to have those conversations. And I don't think growers have had access to that. So the idea of providing one-on-one critiques or one-on-one ideas could maybe be a little bit more intimidating if they've never been given the tools to kind of have those conversations. But I think if I was a grower, just finding little ways, either if you've seen someone doing something really well, acknowledging it and letting them know on the positive side, but also if there's little ideas that you have to make something better, recognizing that there's a lot of value in those ideas. And taking a deep breath and putting those ideas out into a space that I think one of the things too, and this is maybe a little bit philosophical, in order for the industry to get better, I think we have to believe that it can be better. Like if we get too cynical, and if we don't like the way things are and we kind of just get a little complacent with it, we're never going to have stronger networks or stronger relationships. But, in order for us to kind of hit a point where we have really strong grower networks or really strong research ecosystems, we have to believe that we're capable of doing that, which I think we absolutely are.
Well, that's really interesting, because often farmers in the Canadian prairies and maybe Ontario farmers feel the same way too, that Ottawa just has no clue, and they're never going to listen to me, and I'm just going to hate them and then ignore them. But
Yeah.
And
but I think
it's so easy to be cynical.
Yeah.
But like I think kind of the brave thing or the hard thing would be to try. And
to try,
and see if they'll be receptive.
Yeah, I mean, I know we have to actually wrap up right away here, but which is always so fast. But with stuff like that, where it's like you got to, when you think about the improvements to agriculture, making it better, and you got to believe that it can be better, and that belief has to kind of fuel that fight or that initiative. You also have to kind of recognize I guess back to KPIs, you actually have to recognize when it does get better, right? Because I think in a lot of cases, it's like Western Canadian farmers are so used to fighting with Ottawa, right?
Yeah.
Would they even recognize if Ottawa got better at listening to them? Would they be able to actually stop fighting? Or is that such an ingrained part of what we do that we can't even recognize when things are improving? So I think that's a key part in these, because you get kind of locked into a mode of being, like of behaviors, right? So you're always fighting Ottawa. It's like farmers versus government. Well, if a government started listening tomorrow, say, hypothetically, would anybody actually recognize that? Right? So
that's great.
What is, you have to kind of, I mean, that's a hard one. That's a really difficult philosophical, psychological, contemplation to end with. But it is something for sure.
Just to kind of echo that a little bit more, like as much as it's I think it's absolutely a two-way street where it's like if you have farmers fighting with Ottawa and farmers saying, oh, they never listen, and then certain officials in Ottawa saying, oh, they're never happy with us.
Yeah. Well,
and then,
right. Yeah.
Like it's like, well, then it's easier to just not work with them. But
we get locked into these loops, right? Where it's just, you gotta kind of, Anyway, we do have to wrap up.
All right. So Lauren, when Toban and I reached out to you, or Ashley maybe did the actual official reaching out for this, and asked if you wanted to participate, was there something that you thought, yeah, I want to talk with these two guys, and I want to tell them this? Like, was there a point that you wanted to get across?
Oh. No, not in particular. This is a little bit of a way back to the very beginning. But one of the things that I've kind of found funny about this project, and so one of the reasons I chose this project was because for me it was actually a learning opportunity. Like this isn't a space where I actually have a lot of lived experience. I have a lot of, observatory experience. Like I'm obviously familiar with OMAFA. I'm familiar with, the networks I've been a part of, and various grower groups. But I've always kind of been a little bit of an outside observer. But for me, like in kind of career-wise, it's an area that I would really like to be more involved in, and like more involved in collaborations and kind of helping facilitate some of these connections. So it's been such a funny thing to do this project where, to be completely honest, I felt like I had no right to take on, but this isn't an area where I have a huge depth of experience and a lot of skills. It was kind of just off the deep end a little bit. So one of the things I love about conversations like this is, like, I don't ever know where they're going to go.
Yeah.
We don't either.
And,
They don't have a point.
and it's just been,
yeah.
like, it's, I kind of intentionally chose something that was a little bit outside, not a little bit, in a lot of days it was a lot outside my wheelhouse. So it's been just such a funny thing to hear what other people have thought about it, or what things you guys have kind of picked up on that were, insightful or impactful. But yeah, like I'm an agronomist from Ontario.
I love it. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and now I'm in Saskatoon. What has happened?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I like your point about one person, one idea, and you'd share it. So I mean, if there's a takeaway for me, it's your message that let's be open to any sort of ideas, bring them out into the open air and discuss them, and maybe 99% will go nowhere, but eventually we'll find those few that really can make a difference, and we won't know those few unless we start talking about them.
But yeah, I think if we can leave on that, if that can kind of be the key deliverable, I think that's a happy. I would love it. If people only listen to 10 seconds, that's the clip I would like them to listen to.
There we go. Awesome. I like that. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Lauren. It was great chatting with you. We'll see each other again many times, I hope.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, let me know if you're in Saskatoon. And yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been so much fun to chat. And even with the report, I mean, it lived in my head for like 2 years. So now that I've kind of put it out into the world, it's nice to get feedback on it and hear what other people have said.
Yeah, we'll share a link to it in our notes for sure. Hey there, listeners. If you're enjoying the conversations here on The Extensionists, you will probably love to get our newsletter.
Yeah, it's the best way to stay connected with us, with Jay and myself, yours truly.
Oh.
I'm excited about the newsletter, to be honest with you, because I think...
Why are you excited about
so many of our guests have...
Sorry. Why are you excited about it?
Say that differently, Jay. So many of our guests they say so many things of interest, right? And I feel like the newsletter will be a great way to share that with our listeners.
Like quick take-homes?
Yeah.
Summaries?
Yeah, absolutely.
One-liners?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think about each guest, we could probably write a whole bunch of articles from each of our guests, right? So to give our newsletter subscribers like summaries of the key takeaways of these things, plus information on upcoming guests, all the listeners have to do is go to theextensionists.com and follow the prompts to sign up for the newsletter. I think it'll be great. That was a good chat.
I enjoyed that. Lauren was just so natural.
Yeah,
She came across this. It was a really nice conversation.
yeah. It was just kind of like a discussion of kind of ideas. I liked. I know you have a takeaway because you mentioned it in the podcast. But I like the idea of like we were talking about collaboration, and she's like, just to there was a time when we were talking about collaboration, and she was urging people to do it. Like if you have the idea for
Yeah.
people to come into the room, like don't wait for other people to do it. Start small. Start
Yeah.
with like these big collaborations that we have that we're used to. These kind of these traditional ones. They all started small, and I like that idea. So you don't. I think about it personally. I think like, okay, even as Burr Forest Group or the stuff we do with Extension, we should reach out to University of Guelph and like, why don't we just make the call? Like, why do I think that we shouldn't, or
Right.
like, or that they wouldn't be interested? We should start like, or I should start doing that.
Yeah.
And that was a really key. That was a key for me.
Well, I'm just thinking of when I met Lauren at that Ag Extension conference in Guelph.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
No.
And I'm just thinking of that conference. First annual was last October.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's our wheelhouse.
Yeah, these
So
are our people.
Yeah. So you,
Or
maybe if
tribe.
you've got ideas, or if I have ideas for how to make the conference better next time around, I mean, are they receptive? Who knows? But we won't know unless we kind of put some ideas together and share them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like that a lot.
So I'd like to pick up on an idea that you flagged partway through, and that's about getting farmers involved in any sort of extension conversation, even extension communications training. So what were you thinking there?
So that was
like have farmers at our training.
That was a
session?
previous podcast, wasn't it?
No, that was this one.
When I said get farmers involved.
I'm pretty sure it was this one. Doesn't matter.
It wasn't. Yeah.
Answer the question. No, I'm just kidding.
The dang question. Because we were talking about, like, she was talking about listening to farmers.
Yeah.
Getting them, making sure they're listened to. And I get frustrated when industry or whomever, even myself, when I say I want to do something or I'm going to do something, and it's like, is there value in even saying it, or is there more value in just doing the work? Like I personally, what do I need to change to actually do the thing that I say I'm going to do? I don't need to tell farmers I'm going to listen to them. I just need to listen to them, and then I need to show that I'm listening to them. So I think getting farmers in the room, absolutely super valuable, but then also showing that the last time you got farmers in the room, you listened to them. And so, and that is affecting what you're presenting to them this time, as opposed to just like that pat thing that you say to be like, okay, next, I'm going to listen to you now. I mean, it's like, well, haven't you been? Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I feel like that's something I should personalize it. Something I need to be better at.
It just made me think of our Ag Days. Like maybe our next year, if we do an Ag Days live recording, it's just like a town hall, just the two of us talking to the farmers in the group, rather than having a guest.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, what does extension mean to you, and what do you need from extension?
Yeah, be great. That'd be amazing.
That
actually,
would be good.
Yeah, I think that collaboration piece is it's a big one, and I mean also like, I'm always fascinated by people who've gone to Australia. She spent time there, and Australia comes up all the time in ag, eh? Like so many people.
Well, and the Netherlands. I mean,
and the Netherlands. I know.
Those are the two countries that often, like, I don't know what, they lead the world in certain ways, and maybe extension.
Eh? Yeah. Small Netherlands, such a small country, and then Australia is this massive thing. And but I mean, again, I'm going to go on a tangent here. I'm going to probably end right away, but just like, so you have this world, this globe that's full of different models for doing things, and some of them are kind of are quite successful, and yet we can study them, we can go visit them, but it's just such a tough thing to bring those models back. And I get why it's complicated, because it's just completely different. But how can we just be better at, hey, like collaborating on that macro scale too? It's like, oh, hey, okay, we're not strong in this, Canadian government, we're not strong in this field. This country is, and it's working. How can we just, anyway.
No.
Do you have a response to that? Or what are your key takeaways?
Well, I my key takeaway was the which you expressed is just this starting small.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you've got an idea, share it, talk it through, be open to critical feedback,
Mm-hmm.
and then sort of building from something you think, well, maybe this will work. Let's expand the conversation, and then an idea kind of takes shape into something that we can really work with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Yeah, I know. And the whole the whole time, that part of the conversation, I'm thinking, how many people have great ideas but don't express them because they don't want to be responsible for doing the work behind it, right? That's a thing, right?
Yeah.
I think of like volunteer boards. How many people stay quiet because they know if they raise their hand, they're gonna have to be the ones to do it, right? So great ideas just kind of sit there,
You're right,
unexpressed.
Yeah. And then they'll come around when people have the energy to get them done.
Mm-hmm.
This has been the Extensionists. I'm Jay Whetter,
And I'm Toban Dyck.
Spread the word, brother. This has been a Burr Forest Group production.
Jay, did you know that the podcast couldn't happen with the hard work of the people behind the scenes?
And I've got their names right here. They are Abby Wall, producer and editor, Ashley Robinson, researcher, and Michelle McMullen, marketer.